Hello, and you're very welcome to the Town End podcast. It's season 3, episode 23. Well, it's Derby Day Delight, and somehow we managed to wangle all the 3 points away from Weavers Park. To go through me on this game tonight, well, it's a bit of a press field to this one. At the moment, we have James Rogers from the Argus, and later on, we'll have Niall Newbury from the Democrats. So we'll have a journo off. Is that what's happening, James?
Something like that, yeah. Nice to get together.
Exactly. James, we've sat through many Allowed Derby, and sometimes they're not always the most entertaining games, but certainly it couldn't be said for the latter half of this game today.
Yeah, I turned around to another local journalist, Barry Landy, just at the full time, and I basically said, I don't know how we've won twice in Weavers Park this season. It was a bit of a smash and grab, because I think, needless to say, I think Drogheda could have been easily further ahead, maybe early in the second half in particular. But you stay in it and you give yourself a chance. And unfortunately, I suppose it's the third game in a row we've had to come from behind, and it's probably becoming a regular theme. I think I said earlier, I think 15 times of the 22 league matches this season we've been behind, and you can't keep doing it. But that's probably a wider issue. I think that for the night that's in it, was it the best performance? Absolutely not. But in a local derby, you take 3 points no matter how you get it. You take the win no matter how you get it. And look, they got the job done to move on, because it's the start of a sort of busy sort of period pre-Europe and big games, really. So, everyone's come back up the M1 now in great form tonight from a Dundalk perspective.
Yeah, we've seen Skip kind of stick with the same starting 11 for pre-break. We surprised he made the changes tonight and Elliott dropped out.
You probably felt John Martin deserved his chance, like after the goal in Cork and that, and it's there's not a lot between them as such, and unfortunately for both of them, I think their impacts have been best seen off the bench right now. If you could get them from the start, but like they're both as honest as day long, as they'll work hard for you, they'll put in a shift, and I think it's probably easier for that sort of player to look a little better when they're coming in as players are tiring, and they're a bit fresher in that. So even this evening, I know it probably wasn't as warm as maybe it has been even yesterday, but it's hard in that heat. We take for granted. Like I put a jumper on me at the end of the game, but I was sitting in a t-shirt for most of it. So it's when you're trying to run in that heat and you're up against two decent centre halves, to be fair, it's hard to make an impact. But to be fair, and it's hard to know which you go with, but they're making an impact. Like John Martin got the goal in Cork last time out. Cammy Elliott got the assist for the equaliser tonight. So and the changes worked. Too often in the past, and I've said it felt like our subs weren't making impacts. I thought it did tonight, because even the switch that moved Ryan O'Kane over to the right hand side, he probably could have had a hat trick in many ways. Definitely two shots that were very close, to including the last kick of the game, and obviously won the penalty. So look, everything's not going to be perfect, but as I say, in a local derby, and I think, listen, you see more matches at Weavers Park than I do. It's so tight, it's so compact. I think it's probably the worst place where you should maybe overanalyze a game as well, because it's just so, it's so hard. And particularly, I'd say the statistics there of, I don't have them now, but I'd say the statistics there of a team coming from behind to win there is slim. It's not that sort of ground, I think, that you can turn it around.
Yeah, it tends to be maybe more of a slip up from Drogheda or something. We've seen it against UCD there previously, where UCD went ahead. I probably know too much about Drogheda games, to tell the truth, to be talking on this podcast. We start the game off. You've mentioned already. We go behind again. It's another slow start. It seemed to be one with, I think Pat Hoogan should have been on 40, because he seemed to be the most irate after the ball went in the net. Draper's causing all sorts of confusion, and it just lands at Foley, and he just kind of presses it on into the net. How did you see that opener?
Yeah, I was disappointed in it because I think the warning sign was there. Did a corner a couple of minutes earlier, and basically Keeley and Adegboyega were both up for. I think Manny got there in the end and headed it over. But you're saying, right, both of their centre halves basically had a free run at it, and you're thinking that's disappointing. But you had the scare, and then you didn't. You didn't heed it because when I think Darren Markey took the corner for the goal, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yeah.
I thought it was going nowhere. I thought it was going to be overhit slightly or whatever, and then Draper gets on the end of it. And I mean, Archie Davies, if you look at him, he puts his head in his hands and he knows he's done wrong straight away. He's just let Foley drift completely. Maybe if you stay tight with him, he doesn't get the space to do what he done. But it was just poor. And I suppose, look, every goal is in some way preventable, but that was definitely one that I think you'd be disappointed to be conceding goals like that. And it was just another bad start because you're giving yourself, as I say, it's far too often we're going behind in games, and I know, okay, we've turned it around in recent weeks and managed that, but you can't keep doing it. Like even again, with all due respect to Drogheda, if you look at the fixtures ahead, Pats, Rovers, Bows, even a European game to follow, like I think if you go behind in those games, I think it's harder to come back and win. So they need to try and cut that out a little bit because again tonight that's the 29th goal Nathan Shepherd's conceded this season, which was what he conceded in the whole of last season, and like we feel like we're only about halfway through, so we're shipping too many, and the worry would be in Europe. I think in particular you get punished for that, and even the FA Cup's not too far away either. So you just like to see long term that sort of eradicated because it's been happening far too often. I know they probably are going to look at defensive options with Waziri Williams going, but something needs to be done because it's again. I just felt we got away with one on the first corner and then didn't heed the warning for the second.
Yeah, and it seemed that really kicked them on. I mean, you could see every time that the ball was going back to Shepherd or anything like that, they were straight on it. It was a pressing game. Some of our passing in that first 20 minutes was kind of going a bit rogue as well. Did we seem a little bit, taken aback by the pace that they wanted to play or the way the Drogheda wanted to play? Because I would have thought that's exactly what I was expecting from them, to have a high press against us and force us into the mistakes.
Yeah, they definitely targeted Shepherd. Anytime the ball was at his feet, or chased him down. Like that's what you get from Drogheda. It's more like industry, hard work, dedication. They got in our faces. They probably bullied us a little. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
And that's also a slight concern because if you're talking about the midfield battle, I mean, they won it tonight. I know we took the points, but like again, you're losing that more often than you're winning it. I feel at the moment, and it's just something that, again, you can win games being second best, but by and large, you kind of need to play better more often than not to get the positive results. And I think, we're probably a bit lucky tonight. We've been lucky in recent weeks in certain games to get out with results. Overall, I think we're level on points with Bows tonight and enjoying fourth. It's probably not a bad place to be in, but and you don't want to come across as too critical all the time either. But like, I just think if we just fix little things in our game, we could be definitely sort of, looking up, because it's on that sort of precipice the whole time of like, you put a couple of wins together and you're, booking next year's annual leave for Europe and equally lose a few games and you're seeing when's the playoff for the first division. It's a mad division. But I think like if anyone can show a little bit of consistency in a league of inconsistency, I think you'd be all right. And I think we're not that far away. I don't think, like, it's not perfect by any means, but we're probably a signing or two. I don't know if we'll have the budget for it, or whatever. But if we can get one or two players in, I think it'd make us a lot better unit.
It's funny you mentioned the midfield there, James. I mean, from watching the game tonight, in particular in the first half, I thought, as per usual against us, Gary Deegan had one of his better games again. I thought him and Pat Hooban were having a good El tussle together, and they seemed to enjoy it. Even Brennan was finding gaps in the space and allowing the runners off him. And my fear always is that when those two start dictating the game, that tends to free up a bit of space for the likes of Dara Markey then to start, pulling the strings a little. In particular, in the first half, that seemed to be the situation over and over again, that they would kind of narrow when we tried to play the ball through the middle. They would just narrow us down, and then once they got the ball, they would find an outlet in Dale Rooney, or they would try to find Dara Markey or something just to unleash and then attack at a lot more pace. This midfield, it seemed to be chopped and changed so many times this year with Skip. Do you think it's still an area where he'd look to strengthen then in one of those two areas you were talking about?
Yeah, I think it is an area he's looking at, and he's looking for that bit of experience. Like, again, with all due respect to lads we brought in the winter, I think most of them are kind of early stage of their career, haven't played a lot. Like even someone like Louis Ansley tonight, making the point it was the 34th club game for his career, and yet he's played 37 games for his country. So it's like you'd love someone in there like a Deegan, like even a Ryan Brennan, someone who knows the kind of, just have that nous, I suppose.
You've seen Ryan take a definite professional foul, I think they call it these days.
Yeah. But no, like it is something that's neat, because even in the organization of things, like it's just that sort of guy who's, like, ironically, I said it before, but like, the two guys on the sideline, Stephen O'Donnell and Padge Craig, were exactly probably what we're missing if you could take 10 years off them. But yeah, like it's easier said than done in terms of getting someone in. I think Darren there with the common streetwise, and it's just that like buys you. Like Chris Shields was, we need to stop talking about Chris Shields, I know, but like he was just so good at like taking the pressure off when you were under pressure, like, and it could be winning a free that's never a free, but you buy it, and it calms things down and breaks up play, and we don't do that enough in terms of like set teams on the overlap, dispossess them and catch them on the break and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's definitely something, because O'Donnell was that type of player. Craig was they know it better than I do, but it's getting someone, because look, players like that are always in demand, and you have to budgetary factors and stuff like that. Again, so like sometimes we can be too, like, even the chance Freddie Draper missed, like I thought it was criminal, because it was our free kick it came from, where Daniel Kelly had been fouled, and all of a sudden, I don't know even what we did with it, but all of a sudden, Alicia Albi's away down the wing and putting it into Draper, and I don't know how it stayed out. I'm sure he doesn't know how it stayed out. But like,
yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah, like that was like, it's a very different podcast. If that goes in, I'd say, but yeah, like it's just been that, like I think Darren said it well in terms of the word streetwise.
Yeah. Eamon Collins just checking there, the transfer window, I presume that's the 1st of July, is it?
Yeah.
I'm just double checking. Chances for ourselves, James, in the first half, I can think of Dickie Kelly's one where he tried to toe poke it and pass Wogan, and then I suppose Ryan O'Kane's one that kind of tamely went towards goal, I suppose, and it was collected at the second time. Up to that, and then probably Pat Hooban's one, which Wogan probably knew less about, but he was in the right place at the right time. And he seems a decent prospect for, is he 17?
17, yeah. He came through RD Celtic's club, so I'm sure Adrian Taff, I didn't hear him on commentary, I'm sure he mentioned that as a proud RD Celtic man. But yeah, it was frustrating for me, because it's only his third league game, if I'm not mistaken. He's played the two previous to this. He's still yet to keep a clean sheet in his career. And listen, this guy might go on to be the next Iker Casillas for all I know. But I think when you're in something like that, a derby match, he's from RD, so he probably gets it. He hasn't kept a clean sheet yet, as I say. Have a pop, like try something, even just shoot from 30 yards or something, have a go, test him. And we didn't do that. Like, he's gone in at half time, and I know there was a slight scare for them just literally before the halftime whistle. But he couldn't believe how easy he had it. Like Dickie's chance, okay, he needs to hit the target there, but I mean, he had one, as I say, one from Ryan O'Kane, which he actually made a little bit of a mess of, but got away with it. He spilled it and got gathered the second attempt, but he'd very little to do. And as I say, this guy might go on to be an amazing goalkeeper. I don't know, but like you need to test him. And I don't think we did that enough tonight, even with the goals we scored. I think you won't hammer a goalkeeper for not saving a penalty, and I don't think he could do much about the equaliser from Pat either. But yeah, just that was just disappointing for me, because I think see what he's made of. Like, there had to be a bit of nerves there or whatever. But look, we got there in the end. But again, these are things you need to be doing, because I remember a few years ago, like being up in Derry, and did a lad playing with them at right back, and being so frustrated. Mickey Duffy didn't run at him once, and like I can't even remember the lad's name now. I think it was Scott something. He played about 3 matches for Derry and wasn't seen again. And I'm like, well, this lad's only in. I think it was his debut that night. He's raw, and listen, he might be an amazing player, but you don't know. Test him, see what he's made of. And I don't think we did that tonight with Wogan.
Yeah. So we go in at halftime. Are you surprised there's not changes at halftime from Skip, or you just think that's not his style? He normally always waits around the hour mark and makes his changes then.
Yeah, look, I think he was probably trying to get them. Sometimes we've seen them start like the second half well, and if you go back even to the Cork game, I know we got the equaliser before half time there, but we were a different side then when we came out in the second half. So maybe he was hoping that what he said at half time would work, and it didn't really. And then he went for the triple change, and to be fair, it had the desired effect, because I think it did make us a little bit better, a little bit. I think Ryan was certainly more of a threat off the right. I think Tulloch, it didn't happen for him, but I think there was maybe 2 around him at times when he had the ball and stuff like that. So
he was occupying players, wasn't he?
Exactly. Yeah. So you don't always have to maybe beat people to make an impact, but it just frees up space for other people. And again, Cammy Elliott comes in, and he's just a nuisance. He's a handful. He just puts himself about, and he gets his assist. This is a guy who hasn't played a lot of football for us, and I know we'd rather be getting goals than assists. But only Hubin and Leahy have more assists than him for us now after tonight. So it shows you as well that he is affecting things to some extent. So you'd have to say it was a good triple sub by O'Donnell, because
he's done that a few times, James, this season. That seems to be a real feature, that he's often gone in 1, 2, 3 changes like that to really have a massive impact on the game. Do you think is that like a tactic he actually goes for, or is it more needs most sort of a way?
Yeah, clearly it is. And look, I know they're dealing with data as well. Like different players might be tiring. Again, the heat. It was a warm night. Like I know the sun wasn't beaming or whatever, but when you're playing in that sort of heat, it tires you. And then you have to have sort of one eye on Monday as well, because you have another game coming up. So, he's looking at things maybe slightly different than we are, but it freshened it up and give it a new approach. And I'm sure even someone like Robbie McCourt going in, probably thinking, look, he was taking set pieces and stuff like that, corners and that, maybe give him a go at delivering one. So, but you'd have to say, look, we'd be the first to give out about him if he was making subs that maybe set you back the other way. But no, he definitely had an impact tonight.
So the subs come on, and it kind of kicked us into gear. All of a sudden, Mali has that big strike, which ends up winning the corner from. It's one of them. It's bending low, hard through some bodies, and it's probably what we were calling out for, like you just said in the first half, isn't it? Just get on it and drive it, and maybe have a crack.
Yeah, I don't think he got a lot of power behind. There may have been a deflection. It was hard to see from my angle, but again, test the keeper. he's a young keeper. Just see what he's made of, and we started getting into their faces then. I think they had made a change around then as well. I think Aaron McNally went off or maybe it was just after the equaliser, but to change their left back as well. And Ryan was having a field day by the end of it. Like it was, he'll listen. I know the Dundalk won tonight. He'll feel he should have a goal for himself as well. But that's what I'm saying. The changes worked, and we started getting at them a little. I know. Look, after the second, we were hanging on a little bit, but you expect that the roll's going to come back at you, and you're going to always have to take a bit of pressure off. But again, we're not going to sit here and pretend it was a perfect performance. It wasn't, but there's definitely a bit of grit and resolve there. That was maybe questioned. Was it there at certain points? Yeah. But to be fair, they have come back from behind in the last 3 games. You've gone back almost 5 years, July 2018, since we've last been down at half time away from home and come back to win. So it's not something we do a lot. But it's another monkey off the back tonight. But I just prefer if we stop going behind the games. That'd be I'm sure O'Donnell would love that too. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I suppose we better get talking about Pat very quickly. You won't be happy that we've gone this far without really delving into it. His first goal, it's probably a real Pat Hoobin sort of a goal, isn't it? Like he's in the right place at the right time, just as we're starting to turn the screw, and probably Kevin Doherty and Drogheda are getting not that they're overly worried, but they probably can see Dundalk getting back into the game a little bit more, and then up pops Pat with that goal.
Yeah, like it for me, it sums him up. Like he's just like he's lethal in that sort of area, and I think it's an underrated header. I haven't really seen it back a lot now, but I think a different player doesn't put that where he puts it. Like he just his ability to sort of to strengthen his neck muscles or whatever to power past keepers and stuff. Like many times have we seen that over the years, and to follow it up then so quickly with a penalty. He spoke to him afterwards. He said he was quite nervous taking it. He said he doesn't like that in the United Park, that it feels a bit uphill or whatever, but he stuck it away well, to be fair. But I mean, what a player. I mean, like, I personally don't think this will ever be broken, because I think the game has changed to an extent now where if anyone came along, be it next year, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if you score 10, 12, 15 league goals, you're gone. And like the example of that is in recent season, we saw Georgie Kelly had a brilliant year at Bohemians, gone. Aidan Keena with Sligo, gone. So I don't think anyone will hang around long enough to sort of, show the consistency that he has to do it. And he's such a big player. Like tonight was the 73rd time he has scored the first goal for Dundalk in a game. Like he doesn't get I'm sure he has at times, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't get the 4th and a 5-0 win, or the inconsequential goals. He gets big goals, and it was a lovely way for him to do it tonight. It's incredible. Like he's now. It's 111 games he scored in for Dundalk. We've won 81 of them, drew 16, and only lost 14. So generally, when he scores, we win. So even his record under Stephen O'Donnell, to put it in current context, we've yet to lose a game under O'Donnell that he scored in. So that's how important he is to us, and he is the one that you'd say, I think if you had a form of other clubs, I think he's the one that other clubs would desire, because I look around the league and I think, what would he do in a Rovers? What would he do in a Derry team, etc.? And I'm sure they think that at times too. And we're very lucky to have him. And it's an amazing achievement for him, because and we're lucky. I think that the record was around because I'm sure he had options to leave and he could have looked elsewhere or whatever. But I think he he wanted this, and in a way, it's a monkey off the back for him tonight. It's taken him to nine goals for the season, which is what he got last year. And I think he must be thereabouts. I haven't checked it, but I think he must be thereabouts in terms of top scorer now. But I think that needs to be his aim.
I think
Go off
Max Mata was on 9, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and Chris Forrester's thereabouts as well. I need to check it, but like I think he should be definitely looking at that as a target now. Just as the record's obviously been something that's been spoke about for so long at this stage, but I think he should want to go on now and hopefully stays fit, like to do it. But the top scorer in the league again would be a nice way to cap the year for him. But he's really pouring at the moment, and look, we're reaping the benefits of that because again, I look at teams around the league, and you know what would they do to have someone like him in their team, because he guarantees you goals and he does big things like tonight. So it was a nice way for him to do it. As well, to be the main man. I know you're probably going to do a man of the match competition. Like, with all due respect to the 13 or 14 other players who played in the game, I don't think anyone is a prayer.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It's a bit like the last match again. Just we have an opportunity there to bring in Niall. So Niall, you're very welcome. How are you, pal?
How are you, lads? All good? Keeping well?
You're coming in at an opportune time when we're just, spilling over Pat Hooban again. So during the match, we've only got to his first goal, so it's perfect timing. Niall, I suppose you can give us a quick review right up to equaliser. That's what you're allowed so far. We can go through the rest.
Yeah,
but we were talking. It's a sluggish start. We allow Drogheda in. We go behind again, and like James just mentioned, we're lucky to have a player like Pat Hooban, and have reasons for him to hang around at times too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, like that game, like there was nothing on. There was nothing on for Dundalk there at all. 75 minutes. It was. I'm sure, James and myself and Jerry Malone were speaking to Stephen just a short while ago, and he kind of made the point that we'll probably say it's a bad performance anyway. But I mean, I don't think anybody could realistically say that was anything shy of abysmal for the first 75 minutes tonight from Dundalk. I mean, there was nothing there. There were second to every ball. Do you know what I mean? That came in. Like Drogheda really, I'm sure you've already mentioned Draper's bizarre efforts to hit the post twice. I mean, like you really should be 2-0, 3-0 down by the time we even get to that point. But then, as you mentioned, Chris, a player like Pat Hooban, I mean, that's what he does. There's nothing there. Now, in fairness, the substitutions that were made, Cammy Elliott plays a big part. Robbie McCourt plays a huge part in the first goal. Elliott, not sure what he was doing out that far, but he sprays this lovely pass, switches it over to McCourt. He sort of heads it across, and Hooban, like there's no other player in the league who's really getting on the end of that and nipping that into the net. And suddenly you're 1-1, and you're there thinking, Jesus, like we've robbed the point here. You're thinking, at a Drogheda, and then suddenly you're basically just getting your bearings. And next of all, young O'Kane's up the pitch, and he's drawn a foul from Madig Boyega, and with a penalty. And there's only one man taking that, having just broken the record. 1946, that record stood since. And I mean, there's only one man taking that. And as James mentioned already there, he actually did mention that in the post-match that he doesn't really like taking that end. The goals look smaller or whatever he said. But he absolutely buried it. Wogan was nowhere near it, and it was a great penalty. And it actually puts him on 9 goals now, joint with Mata, and just one behind Forrester on 10, actually.
Yeah, we also was 10, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, it was a... Man, the match would have been tough apart from that. I mean, apart from that last 15 minutes, it would have been a tough spell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would have been a tough sell. I mean, like, they were like a team possessed at that point. O'Kane was brilliant for that last 15 minutes. Annesley at the back was like a warrior. It was like, if you could just take that 15 minutes, it'd be the stuff of legends. But the 75 before it were quite alarming. But look, come here. It's a results business. And, bottom line is now, 3 wins out of 3 wins on the bounce. They're right in the mix for Europe. And like, I know, like, some of the players have actually said that, like, they're still looking at the top position. I think that's still a bit, I don't see us being in that mix. The players are right to say that. I mean, they should be aiming for the highest as they can possibly go. But I mean, you're putting yourself in a real good position now in terms of European qualification. And I mean, I think that will be the target and was the target at the start of the season. And definitely got out of jail tonight, but there's no better way to win a derby, I suppose. You'd probably rather that than winning 3 or 4-0. Like, it was, I'm sure it fairly had a sour taste in the Drogheda mouths tonight, I'm sure.
I'm sure it did. James, and Niall just mentioned there, Ryan O'Kane really coming into it in the last 15. Initially, on the lead up to when the penalty was given, did you think Ryan overplayed it slightly? I mean, there's a weird kind of bounce on the ball. He finds it hard to control. He's twisting one way or the other. He allows the defenders to get back, but look, he ended up being smart enough to be able to, get himself between player and ball, and it was a clear foul anyway. Like, I don't think there was any question over that.
Yeah, I don't think the bounce helped him, to be fair, but yeah, look, he was clever in that. Look, again, we spoke about someone with a bit of streetwise about them earlier. Ryan's a young lad, but I think he has that. Like, he probably, due to his size and that, he knows how to buy a foul, like, as well. So, now, as you say, it was a foul. I don't think that'd be kind of too many complaints with it, but it was a bit clumsy, a bit of panic set in maybe. But yeah, look, he had some finish of the game, as I said already. He's probably just feeling that he should be celebrating a goal tonight as well. But look, hopefully saved him for the Monday or Friday. There's plenty of games coming up in the next week or so. So but like, he definitely made an impact, going on the right and really got a Drogheda. And I think he deserved that sort of. I think you get an assist for winning the penalty, don't you? So I think he deserves that as well. Like, in terms of his overall contribution to the game, I think, like, as I said there, I think the man of the match competition tonight would probably be a landslide. But I think if you did it kind of like the bookies do, betting without Hooban, I think he wouldn't be far away. I thought he had a decent game, and particularly in that sort of purple patch we had towards the last sort of 15-20 minutes or so.
Yeah. So Niall, the penalties given, all of a sudden there's a red card for Draper, apparently for mouthing something back to the referee. One of the Drogheda fans told me what he might have said. I'm not surprised he went if that is what he said to him. But so there's a bit of a mayhem there. But Malley's got the ball. Was there ever a chance that Malley was going to take that penalty, I wonder?
I don't think so, no. I mean, like, at one stage I'd seen that as well, and Malley certainly has the ball, and I'm thinking surely not. Like, surely Pat's not giving this to Conor Malley. No disrespect to Conor. Like, I mean, I don't think anybody's telling Pat Hoban at that point, you'd be a brave man to say to Pat, I'm taking this, like, especially as one of the new signings. Like, so I think Pat was always going to bury that, and just that adrenaline and that momentum that he would have had at that stage. I mean, like, and even when he stepped up, Hoban, like, there was no question where that was going. It would have been a very sort of optimistic Drogheda fan to maybe suspect that he might miss or not take it, even worse again. But yeah, obviously there was a lot of aftermath there. Draper got himself a red card. I think we did get it confirmed that it was dissent. I'm not going to repeat what he said, just for his own sake, like, you know what I mean, or what I'd heard he said. Because I don't know, I didn't actually hear it myself. But I mean, like,
let's say,
football,
it sounds like stunned when he said to the referee.
Yeah, but look, it's a high octane environment. I mean, like, you're gonna things are going to be said. We've all said it as spectators at games and said things that we probably think even 2 seconds there, maybe that's a bit much, like, you know what I mean? But look, it's a high octane environment. Your team's just after conceding the penalty. You've a game Drogheda really should have won. Like, Drogheda, it's a real missed opportunity for Drogheda tonight. You know what I mean? With Sligo Rovers losing, Cork City losing, even Shelbourne just above them losing. It's a real missed opportunity for Drogheda tonight, and I can really understand the frustration on their end, because that's twice now they've played Dundalk at home and probably should have got 6 points from the 2 games, and they've come away with 0. So, like, and Dundalk won't be complaining. So I mean, like, it's like Drogheda, like, and Stephen O'Donnell did allude to that, in fairness. Drogheda are a good side. You can see they've got a lot of tidy, good players in that team. They've probably been very unlucky in a lot of games, and I think today was probably as good of example of that as you're going to see about Drogheda. I mean, like, in my opinion, they'll be just fine. I think they'll be absolutely fine in terms of relegation. I don't think they'll be in that bottom 2 positions. I think they will pick up points, their luck will change. And I think they do. They've got too many. Obviously, keeping Freddie Draper beyond the summer window now is going to be crucial for them. It could be make or break, because he was a real find in the off season from Lincoln. But yeah, I mean,
of course, they're probably thinking now, though, if with his 3-match suspension, will they get a chance to see him again?
They mightn't see him again. No, I mean, like that's the harsh reality of that one. Like, look, if I'm Lincoln, I'm probably keeping him, or I'm keeping him at Drogheda because the form he's on, the momentum he's shown. Like, I don't see what harm it could do, unless he's going to go straight into Lincoln's first team. I don't really see the point in bringing him back there. But I mean, it'd be a huge loss for Drogheda. I mean, but I think they've got good players around the pitch. Even Adegboyega, who was obviously at the Dundalk under-19s last season, I know he gave away the penalty tonight, but I mean, like, he was superb. And I think he got the man of the match at the ground at the match. I mean, like, he was superb tonight and nearly scored a great goal himself, only for Shepherd making a top-class save from a free kick. I mean, like, it was he put in a real shift tonight and maybe won the Dundalk Clash out away in one respect, because he's actually had a really good season from what I've seen at Drogheda, and he's only a young lad. So I'm considering we're now down players. Obviously Waziri has had to go back for his personal reasons, obviously, and we're down a defender, and he nearly questioned why someone like Emmanuel Adegboyega was, a player of that age profile and potential, is just allowed to kind of walk across the road basically to Drogheda, and it seems like it could become a big loss down the line.
Yeah, James, we'll come to that big chance in a second. And just on the penalty yourself, do you know? I thought when I seen Mali with the ball, I wondered if because Wogan was kind of coming out and he wouldn't stand on his line, was it a tactic just to relax Pat slightly? Because we seen Pat with penalties against UTD and that this year already, that standing over the ball for a long time. Keepers trying to maybe psych him out or something. Could there be something in that? We know sometimes his hit rate from the penalty spot isn't always the best as well. So I wonder, was there something in that Mali was taking the flak from Wogan at the start, and then he just stepped up, hit the penalty straight away?
Yeah, possibly. Like you do see it now in the Premier League, and I suppose that's just what we look at mainly. Like, so it is something you see there where a different player will sort of, because particularly with, it's more seen in the Premier League that we're, with VAR and stuff checking it, there could be a lengthy delay, and that player takes a lot of the brunt of the mind games that inevitably go on, and I think inevitably things like that happen there inevitably creep in here. You see it with this draft excluder. Someone just decided to start like lying down at free kicks, and all of a sudden everyone's doing it, but it probably will be, but I would have been amazed if Conor Malley was let take that. I think it was only ever going to be one person, and to be fair, he stuck it away. It's his 21st penalty scored with Dundalk for his 21st double. So nice way to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting when he'd seen him standing on the penalty spot. I wonder, was he even just protecting the penalty spot so no one come up and scuffed it?
Yeah, because you do see that too. Like, people will try anything, I suppose, to gain a bit of an advantage. And look, if you're Drogheda, you're absolutely sick bet tonight. It's we won't dwell on them too long, but I mean, you have to be like, I mean, again, I thought they were the better team for the most part. I thought the atmosphere on the ground was incredible. Like, their ultras had they made a lot of noise throughout the place looking well. I think it was their biggest attendance of the season.
I think it was sold out on both sides, they had said before kickoff. Yeah.
So like, it was a big night for them, and they're probably just scratching their heads how they haven't won it, but certainly not lost it anyway. And like, listen, we won't lose too much sleep over them losing the game, I don't think. But it's you'll do whatever you can to get any sort of advantage, and even we saw that a bit at the end. Sorry if I'm skipping, but like when the penalty shout of their own, I don't think there was anything in it. But again, you chance your arm, and look, I think I was saying to Niall afterwards that this is the referee who gave a penalty to Waterford in the playoff last year that hit a UCD player on the back of his shirt. No handball, but Rob Harvey apparently saw a handball and give a penalty that could have cost UCD their spot in the Premier Division. So, like, look, sometimes you get them, and thankfully he didn't fall for it on this occasion.
Yeah. Niall, you mentioned it there before. So, we've seen Nathan Shepherd sometimes pull off, real big saves to keep us in games. It's something we've nearly come accustomed to, but it was a huge save at the end of the game from Manny, wasn't it?
It was really. I mean, like Nathan Shepherd. I mean, like I did say it. It just kind of reminded us with that save as to why we need to do everything in our power to try and keep him if it's at all possible. I mean, like you can't really, like, obviously when Gary Rogers retired, obviously it's tough to replace someone like Gary Rogers anyway. And I mean, obviously Alessio Obibi came in the following season, and things didn't work out for him. To put it mildly, like, and I mean, like, when we got Nathan Shepherd, we last season, he kind of came in from Brentford sort of as a bit of an unknown quantity. We didn't really know much about him. He was playing in Brentford's on the 23 side. We didn't really. I knew he was a Welsh under 21 international, so he must have had some pedigree. But I don't think any of us really expected him to really, perform at the levels that he has been in the last season and a half. I mean, like he's arguably been our key player in that time. I mean, and. The real question that's posed there, if a player like Nathan Shepherd was to go, like, how, and it's the same with Pat Hooban up top. I mean, like, how do you replace players like that? You can't keep, rebuilding all the time. I mean, and that would be a real frustration for Stephen O'Donnell, I suspect, if Nathan Shepherd is allowed to go at the end of the season. Look, it might be out of the club's control. Finances. It's easy for me to sit here and start dictating who should stay and who should go. I don't control the club's finances, and I'm certainly not in charge of the money. But I mean, like, you got to pull out all the stops to keep a player like that, because he's a prize asset, especially with his profile being a British player of that age profile as well. I mean, you'd hate to see someone like that going off on a free in the winter now, and I mean, to me that'd be a travesty. But yeah, tonight showed his worth again. I mean, look, there's been a few games this year where he's been a bit erratic at times and maybe done things where you're kind of like, not really sure about that, but I mean, overall, he's been tremendous. And tonight was just another example of that. It's a great save. And how many times has he done that, Chris? I mean,
this is the thing, isn't it?
It actually nearly felt like a goal at that point of the game. Do you know what I mean? It really did. It felt that valuable, because that's the difference between 1 point and 3 points. Like,
he's won us both games there, like this season. Like when you factor in the penalty save in the game in March as well. Like. It's a massive complexion change. Just the draw, just to isolate the draw of the matches. Absolutely,
yeah, James, and this is something you brought up on your podcast this week as well. About Shepherd, that he is a prize asset, something that was potential sell-on value later on. Like, we're in a situation now where the clock's just running down on his contract. It's getting harder and harder. Surely the opportunity to strike was after he had a decent start to his first season, and was at the end of that season to lock him down to a longer contract, not just take the extension for 1 year. Maybe to try to negotiate a 2-year, then probably would have been a wiser choice and probably not cost as much, because you've seen a consistent form over him now. Again, he's going to have European experience, and hopefully now over the next few weeks, well, that'll only, for potential suitors will say, well, this guy he's playing at a good level. If we're unsure about the League of Ireland level, we can look at him all this European standard, and that's probably a better gauge for potential suitors as well. So it just seems that, like you say, one of our real potential assets at the club that we could walk for free, and it'll be an absolute shame, because we know, as Niall just mentioned, how hard it was to replace Rogers back in the day. We could potentially be in the same situation again.
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing about the Shepherd one for me is that, so look, as Dundalk fans, if you go back over the last decade, we've saw lots of sort of players walk out for free. But I think the difference is that your Richie Towells, your Darrell Horgans, your Andy Boyles, etc., they didn't want to sign a contract.
Yeah,
like they were, they knew they could get it if they had a good season and whatever, they could get a move, and it was probably better for them. And look, I've no issue with that. That as a free agent, you can get your shell out, you're signing on fee, etc., and get your move, and you're more attractive because like the financial risk is minimal. The sort of clubs we're talking about that they would have went to, but that's the thing that gets me about Shepherd is that because, and look, his agent has spoken sort of openly about this. Like they did want to do a deal, and he did want to stay, and he did want to be, he wanted to be tied down for another 2 years. So he would have taken him up till the end of 2024. And look, if you do lose him in that time, well, at least there's the comfort blanket of a transfer fee or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to pretend to know what the demands were or what he was asking for or anything like that, but like there seemed to be like minimal, if any, negotiation on it. It's natural enough. Like, look, you put your car up for sale, you're going to probably advertise it at a little more than what you would take for it. But like, if someone gives you what you ask for, happy days. It's one of those, and look, there's a bit of a game to be played there. But that's the real pity. I think that like this was a bit different than the other ones. That I think he did want a deal. It was there, and look, he's a child in goalkeeping terms. Like,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
he's coming up to now, I think 60 matches for Dundalk, as you say. He's going to have European experience, and if he does things like that, save tonight in Europe, it'll just put him even more on the radar. Like, so you can, like, there is clubs interested in him, so I believe, in the UK. And you can understand why, because it's a problem, because like you see, even Shamrock Rovers are the biggest team in Ireland at the moment, whether we like to admit it or not, in terms of everything, what they can pay, their status, everything. And I don't think he'll end up there for fans that might worry about that, but it's like they're on the hunt for a goalkeeper, and it can be so hard to find that person. We've seen it sort of pre-Alan Manus coming back, where they struggled. They went through, maybe a half a dozen keepers that none of them were up to scratch. And look, Niall's right what he was saying. Like when Gary Rogers left, you were going through obviously Alessio Abibi, Cameron Yates came in, played I think only one game. Even sort of prior to that, like Aaron McCary was sort of brought in kind of as a succession plan to Gary, and it like never really looked like he was going to take the number one shirt off him. So it can be really hard, and like the value of a good goalkeeper is the likes of, as I say, these two Drogheda games where I don't think anyone hammers the keeper if that Adegbayega free kick goes in. I don't think anyone hammers the keeper if Freddie Draper sticks his penalty back in March, but you do big things at big moments, and you earn yourself points. And it's, what, like, I'm kind of glad we're talking about it in many ways, because on a night when Patrick Hooban breaks your goal scoring record, it can be forgotten about very quickly. But what he did is every bit as valuable as a goal, I think.
Yeah, look, Niall, and this is the thing. Like, I suppose if it came down to it, and we're talking about, obviously Williams has left the squad. Do we, we need to get some sort of cover back in there? And Stephen James, we're chatting earlier on, is some sort of a defensive midfielder, kind of, a real strong character in the middle of the park. Also, what's needed? Like, would you sacrifice those positions and new recruits to get for the finances to go to Nathan Shepherd to get a new contract?
I mean, like, yeah, you could say that. I mean, like, if you look at the squad on paper, we're fairly well covered in the central of defence, or sorry, in central midfield, I should say. I mean, obviously with a fully fit squad. Now, it's a very small squad. That's the only thing, and especially with Waziri now, departing the club, and Ryan Tulloch and Johannes Yili Koko are due to depart, as far as we know, in the coming weeks. It really, like, the number of outfield players you have could be down to 16. Like, not counting the injuries to like John Mountney, for argument's sake, and Robbie Benson's obviously out through injury. And if you take those boys away, like, you've basically got 16 outfield players available, and with a European campaign on the horizon, I mean, like, we all saw the draw. I mean, you'd like to think we would get to possibly 3 rounds in Europe based on that draw and how it's gone for us. So, and then you got the FAI Cup game against Shamrock Rovers thrown in the mix of that as well. So, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, look, obviously the club did record a considerable loss in the last calendar year. I mean, like obviously O'Donnell wants to bring in players. Obviously the question did come up again tonight and about recruits and players that could possibly come in, and he did sort of say like, there's no real update in that, and they wouldn't really expect much of an update. I mean, I don't know if he's in the dark as much as we are. It's hard to really know what's going on behind there. I mean, like, has he got assurances that he is going to be able to bring any players in? I'm not so sure. Obviously, the Darrell Horgan link him back up. In an ideal world, we've all spoke about this. It'd be great to have someone like Darrell back as well. But I'm not sure if the current financial situation correlates with someone like a Darrell Horgan coming back to the club. I'm just not sure if it's overly realistic. But what the basis of any good team, as we mentioned in this podcast before, is you need a good defense and a good goalkeeper. Without that, you can have all the great attacking players you want in the world, but if you got a below average goalkeeper and a defense and a shaky defense, it's not really going to matter. That is the basis and the cornerstone of any good football inside, is having a consistent back four and a good goalkeeper. And without that, I mean, I don't think you have much hope without that. And we have like good goalkeepers are like gold dust. They're like gold dust. I mean, as we just mentioned, yourself and James there mentioned, it's very hard to find a goalkeeper who's up to scratch. How many League of Ireland teams that are currently in the Premier, even this season, have actually dropped the goalkeepers and put a new goalkeeper in? You know what I mean? Like Drogheda being an example tonight, with Andrew Wogan coming in, Colin McCabe being dropped to the bench. I know the Cork City brought in a goalkeeper at the start of the season on loan from Celtic, and now suddenly, Jimmy Corcoran's the number one. I mean, like, and the list is endless in that regard. I mean, goalkeepers.
Pat's the same, yeah.
Pat's as well, yeah. Pat's,
yeah, same Pat's. I mean, like, if Nathan Shepherd were to go, like, who do you sign? Like, I mean, there's not an influx of top goalkeepers that we're aware of that we'd be able to attract. Like, you aren't going to get Brian Maher from Derry. You're certainly not going to get Alan Mannis from Shamrock Rovers at his age anyway. I mean, like, Conor Cairns is a good goalkeeper, I think, at Shells, but are you going to prize him away from Shelbourne? I wouldn't think so, based on what we know from previous transfer windows.
Just signed a new deal as well from the Hull.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
the takeover launch, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're really kind of buggered in terms of trying to find, unless you can find another gem over in the UK, like Nathan Shepherd. But then the last gem we tried to find was, a baby in Europe, and it didn't pay off. So, goalkeepers are few and far between, like really good goalkeepers, and we finally got one who I think is obviously a suitable replacement for someone like Gary Rogers. We can't be letting him go. And I mean, like, if it does mean sacrificing a holding midfielder or somebody coming in, I'd probably do it. I mean, I think I do sense that we're covered in midfield. And I mean, we signed a rake of midfielders. If we're signing another midfielder, that tells me that the coach doesn't have a lot of faith in the midfielders that he signed. To me, is what it says. So I don't know. I think you got to put up all the stops to keep Nathan Shepherd at the club, and it'd be an absolute travesty if he's allowed to walk away in a free a few months from now. Like, he can already talk to other clubs, I understand, if his contract's winding down 6 months from now. Like, so we're really in a race against time in that regard, and that's got to be addressed sooner rather than later, because you can't be letting him walk off. And worse again, if you obviously James mentioned UK interest, and that's true, but worse again if he moves to someone like Rovers. Do you know what I mean? Like, we just don't know what's down the line, and we need to do our best to keep someone like that at the club.
Yeah, James, we'll go on to talking about the European draw right after our man of match competition. Do you think, though, just on that finance note and Nathan Shepherd, could there be any correlation that if we were to have a decent run in Europe, that if the extra money was to come in, might that help that situation?
Possibly. Like,
am I putting a lot of eggs in one basket here?
Put it this way, I would be very concerned if we went out first round with the way the finances are. That's the nicest way to put it. Like, cash flow's not good, and that's why, as much as I know fans dream of a Horgan or whatever. Like, look, I think Stephen O'Donnell knows, like, just straight away, Waziri Williams leaving, you need a body. Like, I think tonight even we don't know the exact nature of it, but like, Archie Davies left in a boot tonight, which straight away makes him a possible doubt for Monday, Friday. You don't know how long that's going to be. You don't know how serious it is. Now that I've said it, he'd probably play Monday and be man of the match or something, which I'd take right now. But you are going through, like, maybe Hayden Muller has to come in at right back, and then if something happens, Boyle or Ansley, you don't have another backup centre back. Well, maybe Robbie McCourt or Leahy can play there, but you're you're kind of playing players out of position a little bit then. So he needs another centre half. But the problem with the finances is, like, I've heard the sort of numbers being offered for players, and I think you may get a young player on the sort of wages being offered. But if you're looking at an experienced player, you're looking at probably someone in around the 30 mark. You're realistically asking to move country, and it's not good enough, I think, to entice people who may have when you're that bit older, you potential for maybe you're married, maybe you have kids, whatever, and it's a different thing to factor in. And the financials for me mean, look, you probably will end up with someone, but it could end up being your 12th or 13th choice as opposed to your first, second, or third. And the finances are a very real concern. I think they've looked into getting European money up front, which I don't think is going to happen for them. So that's straight away, because you have to factor in Monday's game. I think is the first home match in basically a month, I think, and the last one was UCD on a bank holiday Monday, which is really, you're in a period as well where you've basically had no cash coming into the club for weeks on end, and now you're forking out for flights to, I don't know many's going between squad and backroom staff, but hypothetically say 30 flights to Malaga, bus transfers, accommodation for, again, 30 people, food, everything. As much as you do earn money from Europe, and it's great, a large chunk of it's gone in travel costs as well, and accommodation costs and that. And that's what people don't maybe think about at times, but it's a big bill. It's that eats into your potential funds again, and look, you're, as much as we might hope and think we should beat a team from Gibraltar, you can't take anything for granted in football. Even I think it was confirmed tonight that it's going to be a 6 o'clock kickoff over there for the first leg, which it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, and as someone, I was in Larnaca in 2018, and basically the heat beat us that day. Now, they were a good side and a much better side than what we're coming up against this time, but it's just extreme temperatures like we've seen last year. A shock pulled off by them, and I can understand why when you're playing in them sort of conditions.
Yeah. Look, like I said, we'll have a quick chat about them. Just a quick run around the house. This should be fairly straightforward, much like the last game. Niall, your man of the match tonight.
Yeah, I mean, up until 75 minutes, it would have been a very, very tough choice or decision to make. There wasn't really a whole lot to really write home with, but I mean, I think it's obviously got to be Pat Hoban. I mean, the 2 goals, but then Ryan O'Kane played his part in winning the penalty. Annesley, putting a good shift as well. Elliott came off the bench, put in a good shift. I mean, the fact that we're talking about boys who came on for the last 10 minutes kind of tells its own story that it wasn't an all-around good performance. But I mean, Pat Hoban, with the 2 goals, the brace, breaking the record, 1946, that record, Joey Donnelly, I mean, he smashed it tonight in a Loud derby, in a game where we had to come behind, in a game in which we were probably atrocious, to put it mildly, for most of it. And yeah, for me, it's Pat Hoban, 100% for me.
James, is this straightforward?
Yeah, it can't be. I don't think it can be anyone else. As Niall said, there is some that played well into points, but come at the hour, come at the man.
Yeah. And I think there tonight we will give it to Jason Crowley, who described him there as a great professional and a loyal club man as well. His penalty was classed, and he's a man for the big moment. So I think that's a perfect one to do. So congratulations, Jason. So James, you touched on it there already. The draw has been relatively kind to us without taking any of Bruno's Magpies for granted or anything like that, but it's definitely a good opportunity to get through to the next round in the competition as well. What way do you see it? I mean, you're talking about temperatures, we're talking about time and stuff like that. What's key from that first leg for you obviously we need to make sure that the tie is alive. That's a given. But like, would you be still expecting a slender lead, or is a draw still an acceptable result to bring back here?
I mean, you'd take a draw, I suppose.
It depends on what the conditions are like when you start playing, isn't it?
Yeah, like, and there's an element of the unknown, because I know even since since the end of last season, for them, they've changed their manager. I think they've signed 7 or 8. Probably will add further in between. So there's an element of, a new manager comes in, he might have a completely different system, different style. Different players come in under different managers and stuff like that. So it is a bit unknown. I think in terms of public, what you can see, that they're due to play Preston in Pinatar in Spain in I think the 5th of July. I think that'll be streamed, so people will be able to maybe watch it and get a rough look at it. But you kind of don't know what to expect. But I think, look, it's probably the best sort of draw we could have got, because I mean, first and foremost, I think regionalisation is a bit of a farce, but yeah, like when you were looking at the other ones, like, I mean, you probably would have been expected to beat the Faroe Islands team as well, but it would have been a nightmare travel wise, I think, because there's no way you can get there directly. And then the other 3, I always was just a little bit worried about, and ironically, the Icelandic team, we may end up facing them anyway, but Icelandic football's decent, just would have been wary of them, and Kosovo and Albania again. That those sort of teams, bad for travel and bad for, like, you could, you just don't know what again. To be technical players over there, to be tricky sides. So really, this was the best you could have hoped for, in terms on all aspects, travel, potential to go through the tie. I think, look, there's warning signs there. I think it was Crusaders played them last year and they beat them 2-1 over there, and even up until the 80th minute, I think they were, still leading the tie, and even at that one out, I think it was a 93rd winner they got, 93rd minute winner, sorry, they got in the second leg. So yeah, look, you can't take anything for granted at this sort of level, like, but and I think the heat could be a real leveler over there. But if you're coming back to Oriel and you're ahead or even behind, you'd probably fancy finishing the job. But again, you don't want to be too cocky about it either. I've seen a lot of people referring them to as a pub team, and like, yeah, they were founded in a pub, but like, we were founded in a railway station, so we can't really you can't have airs and graces about it either,
Yeah. Now, your thoughts on that, Ty?
Yeah, look, I do think it's a favourable draw. I think the 2 draws actually were quite favourable considering what we could have faced in Europe. I mean, look, I'd echo everything James said there. I mean, like, you can't be taking these guys for granted. I mean, and I do think I was in Larnaca myself in 2018, and it was hard enough for me, let alone the players. Do you know what I mean? Walking around that town, I mean, it was extremely hot. You'd probably expect something similar maybe in Gibraltar at this time of year. That will be a factor. So I actually think it's a benefit to us that the 2 legs have been reversed. I think it's better to play the away. I always maintain that playing the first leg away from home is more ideal. It gives you a chance to sort of, obviously away goals is no longer a thing, so that's kind of out the window. But I mean, you can sort of suss them out a wee bit, keep the game alive. I think we still should be looking to get a win over in Gibraltar if at all possible. I mean, like, we're more than capable of it. Obviously beat Crusaders last season at home in Gibraltar, but I mean, you would have to fancy Dundalk heavily over the 2 legs. I mean, to get through to the next round, and then obviously you've got Curie from Iceland or Connah's Key Nomads from Wales in the second round. And I mean, again, it's a favourable draw either way. I mean, based on our coefficient and based on how the ranking system works, you could have got in the second round, you could have got, a Hammarby from Sweden or, Aarhus from Denmark. Would have been extremely, like, you probably would have been the underdog in those games, despite the fact that you're the seeded team. So I think, look, obviously first and foremost, you got to get past Bruno's Magpies in the first round. I would fully expect us to do that. I think it'd be a cataclysmic disaster if we're not getting past a team from Gibraltar in the first round. and it wouldn't be a good look. And I mean that with the greatest respect. I mean, this is a good. Like, these are the third lowest ranked team in the competition. I think the only team ranked below them is Arsenal Tivat from Montenegro, and a team from San Marino. So they're the third lowest ranked team in the competition. I don't think there should be any question. I think we should be getting through this game. Look, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. There's no easy games out there, as we know. We see it at international level as well. There's no easy matches. But I mean, the Dundalk should really be looking to get through here. And then the second round, then you're probably going to get. It's kind of hard to call how that one's going to go. I mean, Curie, again, a bit of an unknown quantity. They're not like we've obviously played FH in the past. You hear of other teams like Valor Reykjavik, KR Reykjavik, etc. We haven't really heard much about these boys. Don't know much about them. Connah's Quay Nomads, beat Kilmarnock a couple of seasons ago in Europe. I mean, obviously no mugs, but I think again, if you play, we played Newtown a couple of years ago. If they're any kind of barometer to go by, you probably should be beating a Welsh team. Icelandic team might be slightly more difficult. I don't know, but I mean, overall, you'd like obviously minimum get to the second round here. I think you'd like to think that we could get to the third round here, though. In fairness, and I mean, you might get a nice plum draw there in the third round. That's probably your reward for getting into Europe then. But I mean, I think the draw has definitely been favourable. It's a favourable draw. I think we should be going into this with a lot of confidence. I mean, the only concern I'd have in relation to it is the actual depth of squad we have. Obviously James alluded to Archie Davis leaving in a boost today, and we all saw that. I mean, like who even plays right back? I mean, we're just so threadbare in terms of numbers at the minute, and you can see the frustration in Stephen O'Donnell in relation to. He hasn't got the depth of squad that he would probably like to have. And going into a European campaign where you could get 2, 4, possibly 6 matches in July, August, along with the FAI Cup being thrown into the mix, is going to be a cause of concern. But I mean, I think the European draw has been favourable. I don't think there's any question about that. Comparable to what we could have got, and particularly in the second round, I think it's something we should be going into with a lot of confidence, and hopefully a good couple of trips for the Dundalk fans as well. I mean, Gibraltar's a good one. It's a relatively easy place to get to. I know most of the Dundalk fans are going to be travelling to Malaga. I'm travelling to Gibraltar myself, but that's, apparently it's one of the most dangerous airports to land in. So we'll see how that one works. I'm not sure if I made the right call there, but and then if it's Iceland, that would be probably more difficult to get to, because the team's based in the north of Iceland, and Connah's Quay Nomads would probably play in Shropshire or as Westry, so that would probably be easy enough to get to for most of the Dundalk fans. So I mean, travel, as James mentioned, you could have got Albania, Kosovo, absolute disasters in terms of trying to get there. Even Faroe Islands, as lovely as that would be to get there, I'm just not sure how you even go there at this point. You know what I mean? How do you get to and from? You'd probably lose your job if you went to the Faroe Islands at the moment. So I mean, so it's a good draw. It's a good draw all around for travel purposes and actual, possibility of getting through the rounds. I think it's a good draw all around for us.
James, would you expect in round 2 that the KA would be the team to get through that round?
Yeah, like I was really wary about them from the simple point of view that, like, again, I would have been over there in 2016 when we played FH, and we rode our luck a little to an extent. This is a team like, you can read too much into coefficients at times, and like they just don't have a European history. Like this will only be I think when they play Connah's Quay Nomads, they're 7th and 8th, if you're 4th tie in total, shall we say.
Gotcha.
They haven't played in Europe since the Intertoto Cup in 2003. So that's why I suppose their coefficient is so low. But to finish second in the Icelandic League last year, and ahead of teams like Vikingur Reykjavik, KR Reykjavik, Stjarnan, Valur, teams we would have known, like they were well ahead of the likes of FH, as well. So they are a team sort of just, they've obviously had a good season, and they're probably a team on the up. And sometimes you can come against these teams. It's a bit, Niall's right what he says about the coefficient for Bruno's Magpies, but again, Gibraltar teams aren't in UEFA competition that long. Same with the Kosovan teams, and that they're new enough nations into it. So you can be a bit unlucky, and I think they were one to avoid. Certainly first round, we may end up having to play them second round, but I definitely think they're a team to keep an eye on. I think ironically, they're the unseeded team against Connaskey Nomads. But I know if you said to me who would be backing in that one and who do you think would be playing, it'd be them.
Yeah. Look, I suppose we'll get round to probably just a small bit of standard housekeeping that we normally do. We'll have a quick look at the table where we stand from tonight. It's interesting, Niall. Before when we were on and we were talking about how, I suppose, what way the table was shaping up, we were talking that there was a few mini leagues forming, and Bulls we were wondering if they were going to go on the slide or not. At that stage, I think they were 11 points ahead of us, and to see us now level with them is some turnaround in probably a fall off in their sense, but also put the 3 wins back to back for ourselves, and it just shows what can happen as well.
Yeah, we've been saying that for several weeks now. I think in this league, just the way it's structured, it is starting to take some form of shape, but yet it isn't. Because again, tonight's results again have just thrown more spanners in the works. Like UCD beating Sligo tonight. I mean, Christ on a bike. I mean, like it's just there's just no way to call any games here at the moment. And look, 3 wins on the bench for Dundalk. It's painting a much prettier picture. Joint fourth with Bows. Albeit they have a game in hand, but I mean, you're 3 points off Pats, who were in a title race 2 weeks ago. You're 4 points off. You're 4 points off Derry in second place. Dare I say it, you're 8 points is it off Rovers on top? Look, 8 points. I'm not saying for 1 second that we're going to be in a title race, but all I will say is that 8 points after 22 games, like stranger things have happened, like in terms of winning leagues. And I know a lot of the Dundalk players have actually said that they're still looking at top spot. I don't think that's really in the conversation for us at the moment, based on just down the line and squads and fixture congestion in Europe and stuff. I just don't think it's going to be a realistic target. European football, look, that's where we're at. I mean, if you can get into that top 3, 4, that would be a really, really good season again for this Dundalk team. I mean, you've now got a 5-point gap ahead of Shelbourne, who lost tonight. Obviously, you've put further ground on yourselves and the bottom 4. We're 12 points ahead of Drogheda now in 7th. We're well clear of that danger zone, the bottom 4. So, I mean, the table's making good reading. But look, 7 days from now, 2 games later, against Pats and Rovers, like, we could be sitting here and having a very different conversation. Because I think that's because even at one stage today where you're losing 1-0 for much of the game, you're starting to look over a wee bit again. You're thinking, Jesus, if we lose these 2 games now next week, we're suddenly back in the brown stuff a wee bit and looking over our shoulder. So, I mean, it's looking like good reading tonight, but it's one of them, Chris, as we know, like we've had this conversation a million times this year. Let's see what it's like in 7 days, because we could be anywhere from 2nd to 6th, in the next 7 days. So that's why it's a fascinating and intriguing sort of league table. I mean, you just don't really know. But look, expectation was Europe. I think that's fair to say, and we're still very much in the mix for that. And albeit not playing very well at times, still scrapping results, but they do say at the same time that that's the benchmark of a good team, a team that gets results without playing very well. So maybe that's how Stevie O'Donnell will spin it. I don't know, but it's looking good for us tonight. It's looking really good for us tonight. And they're games that we, even Cork, they're games that we probably didn't necessarily deserve to win, and we didn't. It was looking bad. Like, we fell behind in all 3 matches that we won, which is interesting. But then again, like, there's no shame in coming behind from wins. I mean, you're better off finishing games well than starting them well and finishing them slowly. Do you know what kind of way? So, I think it's looking good at the moment. So far, so good, I'd say.
Yeah, James, look, we're still, you'd say, easily there touching distance with Derry, who have been inconsistent this year, and possibly a bit like ourselves. Pats have had that poor start to the season, probably came back a lot more consistent of late, obviously under the new management system. But Bows, that has to be our next target to overtake and consolidate into that 4th place and then try looking up. But straight away, James, I can see that stat you called out there, 29 goals conceded, only a difference of +4 in the goal difference. And you're looking up to, Shamrock Rovers with +26. It's a big gap there, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's something you need to sort of eradicate. Like, I know we've won 3 in a row, but let's put it in a bit of context too. The 3 teams we beat were 3 of the 4 teams sort of, in that sort of relegation scrap, like UCD, Cork, and Drogheda, which, and I know, look, not being disrespectful to any of them, but like if you're going for Europe, you kind of need to be beating those teams. So I think the next 3 sort of kind of pre-Europe sort of will tell us a lot in terms of, you have Pats on Monday. I think Rovers then on the Friday. I think if you get anything in that, it's a bit of a bonus. But then you have Bows as well, so you have a chance to, like, they're almost 6-pointers, in terms of getting into that sort of top 3-4. And then, I know Europe sort of takes over then, and it remains to be seen when the cup game will be played. But even when you come back, and again, look, this could be affected by European progression or not, but like when you come back then to sort of, back to the league then after the European matches, you're lucky enough that they're both at home, and again they're Shells and Sligo. So it's a kind of nice way to come back, that there's not additional travel. Hopefully we're still in Europe by then, don't get me wrong, but there's potential for some of them to be, particularly the Shelburne match, I think it's down for the 4th of August. If we advance in Europe, I think that would have to be maybe moved to a Sunday or something. And the fact it's at home, I think, just means something a little bit more. That said, we've only kept 1 clean sheet in Oriel Park this season, and that's something we definitely need to improve on, because while our home record is good, 1 clean sheet at home is concerning. And that was ironically against Pats, the 5-0 back in March. So it's it's something we need to sort of develop on. We've rode our luck to an extent in recent weeks. Now we sort of need to see those improvements and stop giving away sort of simple goals.
Yeah, look, I think the thing is, we when we were talking about how this league was forming, Niall, like we mentioned, because Bows had such a good start, we always thought we were in that mix for a top 4 all the time, yet they kind of knocked us out of that. And Pats had a poor start. We're thinking maybe, can we get a jump on them? But it's definitely leveling itself out. Now the league, and the important thing is, if you're not going to win the league, is to stay close to everyone else in and around those Europe. And as James just mentioned, we probably haven't taken enough points off the Pats, the Bows, those sort of teams, Rovers. We tend to go on a run of poor form, and then when we're playing the teams probably below us in the league, Drogheda, Cork, UCD, we're on the run again. But we need to bring that level of consistency into these games and start beating the teams above us, because that's ultimately how you climb a table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of interesting in one sense how it's kind of shifted, because I mean, last season I think we dropped something ridiculous like 19 points against teams situated in the bottom half of the table, and we seem to have got that right this year in terms of beating those teams. We're beating those bottom half teams now, but our form against the top half has now gone haywire. Do you know what I mean? So that's frustrating. I mean, like last year we were beating a lot of the top half teams, and we were dropping ridiculous points against the bottom half. And now it's kind of gone the other way around this time around. So, I mean, look, you got Bows there as well. Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of suspected that Bows were going to, fall off at one point, and they are falling off. I mean, they've not won any of their last 3. Obviously, they've got a good point tonight. Don't get me wrong. 2-0 down against Rovers and drawn 2-2 is no mean feat. It's a very good point for them. But the bottom line is, it's still another 2 points that they're down, like, you know what I mean? And Dundalk winning tonight's kind of hot on their trail now as well. Shells, I know they've got a couple of bad results lately, but they're still, they're still in that mix just about. But look, as long as you said, Chris, as long as you're keeping yourself in that mix, which we've been doing, to our credit, we've been doing that, and that's not necessarily down to us being superb by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's more down just to the sort of wacky race nature of the league, like where it's just like teams are just taking points off each other, and it's kind of kept us in that mix. You know what I mean? Like, we've lost 7 matches, like, you know what I mean, which is not ideal at this stage of the season. But then Rovers, top of the league, have lost 3, which is, there's one season Dundalk won the league, and we only lost 1 match or something, like. So
yeah, 2015.
Yeah, 2015. Yeah, so like, and other seasons we've lost 3 matches maybe, and I mean, like, the whole season, like, you wouldn't be getting away with the points Rovers have dropped. Like, Rovers have drawn 7 matches and lost 3 there. You definitely wouldn't be getting, like, how Rovers are 4 points ahead is kind of sums up the league at the minute in terms of just everyone is beating each other and drawing with each other. And as I said, the Sligo UCD game tonight just kind of sums that up, just the whole unpredictability of the league itself. And even Bows coming back from 2-0 down, like we're kind of keeping an eye on it in Drogheda tonight at the other scores, and you're seeing Rovers 2-0 up and you're thinking, oh, that's not dead and buried. And then suddenly you're getting downstairs and you're looking at it's finished 2-2, and you're like, jeepers, this is just the way the league is. And it's just like Derry winning tonight again. I mean, they'll probably go and lose against whoever they're playing next week or during the week. It's just mad. It's just mad. But I mean, it's making good. It's making for fascinating viewing for everybody. I think I still don't think the league, even Pats are looking at it now tonight, probably thinking we've got a chance of winning this league. Like, you know what I mean? It's great to see. It's great to watch. And as long as Dundalk's still in that mix for Europe, I think that's really what the carrot for Dundalk is this season.
Yeah. Just a quick question. If either of you have any update there, Jason, probably just wonder, is there any update on Robbie Benson? Has Skip said anything recently about it?
No, he hasn't really. I mean, like, I don't know if James knows anything that I don't about Robbie, but I mean, him not being in the squad, it doesn't look good in the sense of him not being in the squad at this point of the season. I mean, I don't know. Stephen tends to remain very coy on injury updates, and the press releases are quite similar. We don't really look. I understand that as well. You don't want to be making big issues of injuries when you're trying to keep things on the wraps. And I mean, they're just kind of putting Benson and Mountney down as long-term absentees at the minute, and what that means, I think we all kind of know that Mountney's going to be out for probably the rest of the season. If that means Benson is the same, I certainly hope not, because he's a tremendous loss. So, yeah,
James, you're none the wiser.
I think it's a while. It's like to the point where we may see John Mountney before we see Robbie Benson. But yeah, they're not going to integrate detail on it and whatever. But put it this way, I wouldn't expect to see him for Europe. I'd be very, very surprised, and it's a pity because he's, we all remember Bate and Legia and all, you name it. You'd love to have a Robbie Benson in your team, and he does. He brings you that sort, like he creates, he scores goals. He's an engine. You'd love to have him, but unfortunately, he's had no luck with the injury front.
Yeah, look, I think we've nearly gone through everything tonight, lads. I just realised the time as well, and I can't believe people are still messaging us with more questions. We're going to have to wrap this one up. Gents, I want to thank you for your time tonight. Thank you, James. Thank you, Niall. Thank you, as always, to Player Fit for this year's jersey. Thank you to Tony's Pizzeria for our Man of the Match competition sponsorship, as always, and Dundalk Village and Donal Green for overall sponsorship of the podcast. Look, it's on to Monday night back in Oriel Park, as James said, for the first time in a long time. And if there's anything we should take from this victory tonight is, a lot of noise and a lot of entertainment from the stands can help the team a fair bit as well. So it'd be great to see all the fans in behind them, I think, on Monday night as well. Just before we finished up, I think it'd be, and I'm sure yourselves the same, lads, to be thinking, we're thinking of obviously Traducas and his family. It's very sad news, especially when you hear anyone that young. Carlos only had a short time with us here at the club, and I was working at the club at the time as well. He was a real gentleman. I'm sure you were talking to him too and had interviews with him. It's just shocking news to hear that, and obviously with Ziri Williams as well, for the reasons of him leaving the club to go back and look after his girlfriend who's not well with her cancer treatment as well. So it's, in a night, I think that we took a victory away. It's important just to remember just those two people and two families, I suppose, in a different way. And I'm sure you'll join me in just passing on regards to both families there for them. So on that, somehow I managed to end a loud victory in a sorrowful note. I don't know how I managed to do that, but there we have it. Gentlemen, thank you as always. We'll see what happens on Monday, but I think this, continuing on this winning run definitely helps us in the right direction. So until Monday, and everyone else can join us again, come on the town.